Let's move forward with football. Now that the NFL draft is behind us in the rearview mirror, we have plenty of review podcasts for you to go and check out on those if you would like to. But now, especially with no offseason activities in the near future, these rosters across the NFL are basically set. So we'll be diving into a lot of that as we move along here with these post-draft press conferences. But I thought the best way to lean into that to start is to look on the offensive side of the ball and to call out the teams that are in the best situations at every single position. Really highlight the ones that have done the best job of building their rosters at those respective positions. This really came about in my head. Well, one, I would say 90% of the football podcasts in the universe have done this. But two, Jameis Winston signing with the New Orleans Saints, giving them a kind of loaded quarterback room. So this is how I've assigned it. Each of us have two positions. Patrick Doherty has running back and offensive coordinator, John Daigle, wide receiver, tight end, and I have quarterback, offensive lineman. We'll rotate. I have no idea exactly what Pat is going to say. I have no idea what Daigle is going to say, but we each will make our case for one of our positions until we complete all six. Does that sound good, guys?
It does.
Works for me.
Can I throw in a real quick random aside? You asked what I'm doing I forgot to mention I'm about to set both the single season passing and interceptions record with Kirk Cousins in a Madden dynasty.
Why would you pick Kirk Cousins?
I had to be an NFC North team, and someone had already claimed the Packers, and I took the Vikings.
What is like your run to pass ratio? Like would analytics Twitter be on your case if you were a real play caller?
They would be on my case for it being too extreme, even for them.
Just play action pass every single play.
It's essentially probably 90 to 10 pass to run.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Nice. Dalvin
Taking
Cook
it a little too far.
Dalvin Cook is upset, and I'm sure because you are a Rotoworlder, Mike Boone is your prime candidate in the backfield. So I appreciate that.
Dalvin Cook, I've gotten a few of those automated messages that my star running back is upset. So, yeah, he's not too happy.
Okay, let's, again, dive into the topic before that tangent. John Daigle, you were nominated to go first. Where would you like to start? Wide receiver or tight end?
Let's start with wide receiver. I think you could have argued top two, right? Like the best starting top two, but I'm going a different approach, and I'm saying the deepest unit. And I only counted two teams that could confidently go 5 deep on any game day. My winner being the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You start at the top, right? Mike Evans, 6 consecutive seasons with 67 catches and 1,000 receiving yards, keeping that streak alive despite only playing 13 games last year. Chris Godwin got bumped into the slot for a career-high 63% rate in his first year under Bruce Arians last year and came away with the second most receiving yards behind only Cooper Kupp from the middle of the field. Even someone like Scotty Miller, if we start arguing which is their number 3 receiver right now, take into account Scotty Miller, comped as Bruce Arians' next John Brown as an outside speed threat. In his first year as a rookie, did have 3 catches, 25-plus yards downfield. Even third-year wideout Justin Watson last year recorded 146 yards and 2 touchdowns as a part-time player over the final month of the season. And then now you sprinkle in 5th-round rookie Tyler Johnson, who I know the fantasy community is very high on. And he played 78% of his snaps the past 2 years at Minnesota in the slot. So we don't have an exact role for him just yet, but the team goes 5 deep because if Chris Godwin does go down like he did last year, they now have someone they could confidently throw there. And we know Tyler Johnson is also a big-bodied, 50-50 contested catch guy who goes up for the ball and will battle, uses physicality downfield. So I just think it's the deepest position all around.
So to me, that's interesting because you're basically saying 2 wide receivers are the starters. Meanwhile, when I was looking around at potential nominations, while I agree with you that probably at the end of the day, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin trump anyone's top 2, it's shocking how many good 3 wide receiver sets there are out there now. I mean, It's basically starting caliber 3 wide receivers. And I mean, if I were to nominate another team that might be competing with the Bucs, Daigle, I would nominate the Arizona Cardinals. I mean, you have Larry Fitzgerald and Christian Kirk, who both had very solid seasons in 2019, and then it's instantly upgraded with DeAndre Hopkins in the fold, plus Andy Isabella as a possible emerging threat during his second season. There are a lot of others, though, and I won't hog them all because I'm sure Pat has some other mentions as well as potential nominations.
Yeah, I mean, teams are getting serious about 3 receiver sets, as you said, and it's hard to to me, the tiebreaker, I think John approached it the right way. It's most important to have a really, really good top 2 and then some depth. But, hard to argue with the Falcons' top 2. Still, maybe arguably, it's hard. What is even the best? What's even the best top 2 in the league? This would be almost a single podcast topic you could discuss. Now the Dallas Cowboys, though, I mean, I think you can almost lay claim to the Cowboys' top 3 being more valuable than the Bucks' top 2. That's a lot of projection I'm doing for Mr. CeeDee Lamb, who we all love. But you could even throw out troll answers, like maybe the Lions, maybe the Texans, Randall Cobb, Kiki Cutie, is he still on the roster, I believe? Yeah, it's a really good right now, it's just a great league-wide environment at wide receiver. And my answer would have been the Bucks also, because the top 2 is just so overwhelming.
If you debate the top 2, so it depends on how you approach this question. And since this is left to our interpretation, top 2 is Bucks, Cowboys, Cardinals, Falcons, in whatever order. If you go starting 3 wideouts, it then becomes Bucks and Cowboys and Cardinals. Get the Falcons out of there because Russell Gage and Christian Blake don't count.
Hey, you're forgetting one, John Daigle, and I can't believe they haven't been getting more nominations. The Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills of Stephon Diggs. John Brown was fantastic last year, and Cole Beasley is exactly what you're hoping for as a slot wide receiver. The Buffalo Bills, I understand that while they might create separation, they might be open downfield, that the opportunities don't arrive to them as accurately as potentially they should. But from a pure talent standpoint, that top 3 with Stephon Diggs added into the mix should absolutely belong.
You're right. Having said that, you go 5 deep now, and I actually think it's only the Bucks and the Steelers that can lose their 3rd or 4th receiver, and someone steps up immediately.
Yeah. I mean, this is a difficult question from where we sit right now because, one, either you inject your feelings on rookies and who you think they're going to be or know that they're going to be during their first season, and obviously that would vault the Cowboys into there, or it's, again, the top 2 versus top 3 versus top 5. I think top 5 we can kind of throw away, and I understand why you went that. But I would throw in the Bills, and if we can look at potential, going back to injecting rookies into here, there's a potential that the Denver Broncos could potentially be up there. Because Courtland Sutton had a fantastic 2019, and you throw in 2 rookies that already have areas where they win immediately in Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler. I would also throw in, as a potential team, the Indianapolis Colts. T.Y. Hilton's been doing it for a very long time. Paris Campbell in the 2nd round last year did absolutely nothing during his rookie season, but that team expects a major jump. And now Frank Reich has come out and said that Michael Pittman, the rookie, who was also a 2nd round pick, might have been his favorite wide receiver prospect in this entire draft, and comparing him to Vincent Jackson. So again, the Broncos and Colts, to me, could be ones that we look at in 365 days and say, yeah, we should have been a little bit higher on those 2 teams.
The Bills are a good call. I should have put them in the top 2 for sure.
I would say the Lions are the better version of the Bills receiver core that Josh
explain.
Yeah, I mean, you have explosive play, Kenny Golladay, who can do anything on the field. You have explosive play, Marvin Jones, still one of the league's best deep threats. And then you have Danny Amendola, is arguably he's probably not better than Cole Beasley at this point.
No.
It's very simple. Stephon Diggs, by the way, about to set the single season receiving yard on Madden and my dynasty, so I can't really overlook how good he is. But yeah, the Bills and Lions are I think I convinced myself in the middle of my spiel, though, that it is indeed the Bills.
Yeah, Marvin Jones, just because the team has already flirted with cutting him in the offseason. He probably has 1 more year left on that team, but then afterwards, I would imagine, depending which rookie was it? It wasn't Quez Watkins. It was Courtney Davis. Was that it, Josh?
Who, on the Lions?
Yeah.
I don't see any on their depth chart right now.
The Lions have Geronimo Allison now. I mean, if you're thinking of that kind of put them.
They added an interesting rookie as well. I'll look it up as his podcast.
They added DeAndre Swift as at running back. Okay,
Courtney Davis too.
So Daigle, we did not sway you at all. Your final answer here with the best wide receiver group in the NFL is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
You lose somebody else steps in with ease. Yes.
Scotty Miller, low key. I think Bruce Arians loves him. I understand the Tyler John. I understand all of that, but Bruce Arians loved John Brown coming out of Pittsburgh State, going into Arizona, and I am certain he sees a little bit of John Brown in Scotty Miller as well.
And the answer, by the way, is Quintez Cephas was the name I was trying to think of on the Lions roster.
Got it.
Look out for him, Josh.
Are you sure?
No.
Are you sure? Okay. Patrick Doherty, running back or offensive coordinator? Take it away.
I mean, running back has to be the Houston Texans, right? After they went out and got David Johnson for the low price of DeAndre Hopkins.
I win that bet. I win the bet that Patrick opens his spiel with a joke.
Yeah.
I would say I'll approach this differently, and I probably have a similar approach at quarterback too, where depth, of course, is always important. But if I could choose any one team's backfield, I'm going to choose the one-man backfield of the Carolina Panthers.
Wow.
Because not only is Christian McCaffrey have the perfect modern skill set for a running back, someone who is almost as effective as a pass catcher as a runner. You could argue they involve him too much as a pass catcher, obviously, and that even though he's efficient for a running back as a receiver, he's still not as efficient as a receiver would be. But, this is the era of passing. This is the era of running backs where you want to have a three-down skill set. No one is better at that as Christian McCaffrey. And so where he's Mr. New School there, though, he's extremely old school in that he doesn't come off the field. I mean, that is such a huge luxury for such a variety of reasons. The way you can keep defenses off balance when you have a running back who is both your true early down back and your true receiving back. And just his combination of that, old school durability and not coming off the field, and the way he catches passes, and the way he doesn't get hurt. He's gotten better each season. Still so young. There's not a backfield situation I would take over the Panthers, even if we kind of view it as a one-man backfield.
That is not the direction I would have gone in. If I can nominate, how about I do this? I'll nominate one Daigle, and then I won't take all of yours because I'm sure you have a couple of follow-ups here. I would nominate the Ravens. I mean, if we're just talking runners,
why would you want to have four backs instead of one?
If we're talking runners, I mean, it's difficult, and I know this is against the rules. Difficult not to include Lamar Jackson in there when he's the team's leading rusher.
That's
against the rules. For sure.
But then you have obviously Mark Ingram, who still has juice left. You add, in my opinion, J.K. Dobbins, where I think obviously I mentioned it can be difficult to project rookies into there, but I would also say that running back is probably the seamless transition from college to the NFL in terms of production. Gus Edwards could have rushed for 1,100 yards in 1995, and you add Justice Hill to, if there is going to be a piece in there of how you want to use him on the field, and if he was in a different offense that used that more often, I think he'd definitely be a role player and an impact one on an NFL team. As a collective group, I think the Ravens definitely boast the best.
I'm with Josh. The Ravens were my pick as well. If you want to go a little deeper, though, we can do the 49ers, who even someone, Jeff Wilson, as the team's fourth back, scored 4 touchdowns as their goal line bruiser last year. But then to just have a 1-2 punch that is easily interchangeable between Tevin Coleman and Raheem Mostert for pretty much nothing as well on your cap is tremendous. And then I think the Chargers are sort of sneaky with Austin Eckler. You have to give Justin Jackson a little more credit, but he's a big-bodied guy who I think could hold up if asked to carry 15 times. And then Joshua Kelly, the rookie they just added.
Why aren't we mentioning the New Orleans Saints here? I mean, Alvin Kamara, I think, is 95% Christian McCaffrey. I truly believe that. And then you add in Latavius Murray, who's definitely been a productive player when on the field. The Saints absolutely have a case to make here.
But then you go to Dwayne Washington.
I'm going to jump back in here. Why have 3 or 4 guys do the job that one person could do? So, again, I think Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, those are the 2 backfields I think are the best setup in the NFL. But if we're looking at a true committee depth situation, then to me the obvious answer is probably the Cleveland Browns. You have an elite early down runner and Nick Chubb who can also catch passes. And then you have a ridiculously talented third down back in Kareem Hunt that we know can be an early down back. Talk about 2 interchangeable chess pieces and just really, really good young running backs.
That's very fair, Pat. And I think the difference here between wide receiver and running back is that at running back, almost certainly you're going to lose your guy for at least a period of time. I understand that hasn't happened to the Carolina Panthers yet, but we've seen it happen to every other team since that point. So I think at least some depth offers a piece to value them higher here. And I mean, after the Panthers, It's Reggie Bonifon, who's a former quarterback at Louisville. It's Jordan Scarlett, who was a former 5th-round pick out of Florida who did absolutely nothing during his rookie year. And that's it. Like, their backups at that spot are absolutely atrocious.
And your point is also made by what happened to the Giants last year when Saquon Barkley got a high ankle sprain. And they're starting like players that weren't even good at Boston College. So you need a little depth.
The Browns are a great shout. So Pat, are you still going to go with the Panthers here, or has our remark and rebuttal of depth swayed you at all?
I am, because the Panthers, it's not like it would be difficult. If I were starting a team from scratch and I could just like teleport any one backfields onto my expansion squad, I would still do the Panthers because I'd have the best, most versatile back. And then as we talk about running back, it would not be difficult to upgrade the Panthers' depth at running back. So if I'm starting a franchise.
But what we're asking is right now, at this current point, who it is, who's the best in the NFL. You're still going with Carolina despite it being 90% one player and 10% everyone else.
Yeah,
because for how they use their backs, I still think the Ravens are in the best situation. Mm-hmm. And I would also nominate probably your Cleveland Brown mention above what the Panthers offer as well.
I think the Browns might actually be the true, because you have 2 true 3-down backs there.
Yeah.
It's the Browns, not the Panthers.
Okay, that's what we're closing with. We're closing with the Browns. There we go.
The Ravens could lose their top 2 runners, and their third one would still come in and not miss a beat. So I'm
saying they have no one who's even in the same stratosphere as McCaffrey or even as Chubb or Kareem Hunt. We don't know J.K. Dobbins. Mark Ingram has kind of been marginalized. He doesn't catch passes really anymore. Justice Hill, still an unknown commodity. Gus Edwards is fine, but he's just a guy, and I don't know. You need upside too, not just depth.
All right. So far, Daigle's nominated the Buccaneers for wide receivers. Patrick switched over to Cleveland Browns for running back. I will lead us to quarterback here. There are 2 ways to have this conversation. It's depth, and I opened this entire podcast by talking about, your Jameis Winston, your Taysom Hill, and your Drew Brees trio, especially when you consider Sean Payton went 5-0 without Drew Brees last year. The depth of that team, and namely at quarterback this year, is probably even better than it was last year, also considering development. The Indianapolis Colts also have 2 quarterbacks that have plenty of starting experience. Jacoby Brissett has 32 starts under his belt. Phillip Rivers has about 3,200 under his belt with the Chargers. But I would go in the quarterback scenario with the one who is best without depth. I don't think it matters here. So it has to be the Kansas City Chiefs. They have the best player in the NFL at the most important position in the NFL. They even last year went 2 games without him, I believe, and went 1-1. So even despite Chad Henne and Jordan Ta'amu of the XFL rounding out the quarterback depth chart under Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes carries the Kansas City Chiefs to the best quarterback position group in the NFL.
I completely agree. And I think the one-man approach, while a stretch at running back, is definitely – so, every summer I do an article ranking the best quarterback situations. And it's always tough, very few teams even have a serviceable backup quarterback. There's 3 or 4 actually good backup quarterbacks and 26 or 27 teams that are just absolutely screwed if the starter gets hurt. So very few teams even have that luxury. And so if you have a legit backup, your quarterback situation will get pushed up the ranks a little bit. I mean, I couldn't agree more, especially with the infrequency with which quarterbacks get hurt. Not that they never get hurt. As you just said, Pat Mahomes even missed 2 games last year. To me, I always approach this just from who is the best quarterback, unless they're 37 or 38. And it's Patrick Mahomes by a country mile, and then probably still Russell Wilson, number 2. And then the rest is just kind of all you fill in the details later.
Unlike the running back position, you just can't replace Patrick Mahomes no matter what you do. Even his 5th-year option, which the team just picked up for $24.8 million, that's an absolute steal. Considering the long-term extension he's going to receive in the next 2 years, that's going to reset the market double, twice over. So, yeah, it's an easy answer. Patrick Mahomes literally changed football, made it fun to watch again. As these dwindling old men were hanging on like Tom Brady and Ben Roethlisberger, Patrick Mahomes came in and said, no, I'm just going to play football the way I learned. And, yeah, he's fun. He's just fun.
Mahomes is about to get Cristiano Ronaldo money. It's going to be a brave new world for the NFL.
And it will seem like a steal.
And you're
because
so
he
right.
keeps you in every game, no matter what.
You're so right about Mahomes making football fun, because like we're still in like the efficiency at all costs era, but we are finally starting to see teams build offenses again with a downfield mindset. As like one of the teams that has to play the Chiefs twice every year, the Broncos have decided they have to do.
And I mean, we talked about injuries. Last season was about as close as possible to worst case scenario for the Chiefs when Mahomes went out with a dislocated kneecap, returned 2 games later, and they won 6 of their final 7 games of the regular season and then won the Super Bowl. Like Andy Reid, I think would be able to get by in a 2 to 3 game stretch with Matt Moore or whoever else, they pull from the street to start for them. But
they almost beat the Packers. They almost beat the Packers last year.
But at the end of the day, having a quarterback who can orchestrate 21 points in a single quarter, basically, not whenever he wants to, but in any game that they need to, that is the difference maker. And that's why, even despite the lack of depth here, Patrick Mahomes deserves this honor by himself as Atlas carrying it on his shoulders. Pat, let me ask you this, though. I mean, even this past weekend, when we were watching the NFL draft, more and more teams are valuing backup quarterbacks. Why aren't the Chiefs doing that as much? But why are teams like the Eagles doing it? Obviously taking Jalen Hurts in round 2? And we've obviously seen what the Packers did, investing in their future. We saw Jameis Winston sign with the Saints. Like, these are all backups that have potential to start if need be, yet some other teams that are already in their window to win right now aren't investing nearly as much in them.
It's just because even with in the era of like the exploding salary cap, where like salaries still aren't really keeping up with how much the salary cap has increased, so you can spend more on this, but it's just so prohibitive. And we had the Saints, vividly demonstrate the benefit for having a legitimate backup quarterback last year. So obviously any contending team should want to have a legitimate backup quarterback, but look at the prices you have to pay to do it. It has to be $7.5 million for Marcus Mariota, or a first-round pick on Jordan Love, or a second-round pick on Jalen Hurts. And when you're a contending team, so again, we have the Saints showing you how good it can be to have a legitimate backup. But when you're a contending team, you just can so rarely devote those resources to that position. And the Saints are just, they're playing a different game than everyone. Like, more teams should adopt the Saints approach, in my opinion. More teams should be all in on any given, like the Saints are all in on whatever season it is. Yeah. That's a more fun approach. That maximizes your championship odds. You need to worry about the future, obviously, but more teams should be all in on every season, in my opinion. And the Saints are doing that, but it's just, look at the cost to get a legitimate backup quarterback. It is so high.
What was your second option, Josh? Was it the Saints?
I really didn't have one. Yeah, I would probably go with the Saints because even at the top, Drew Brees obviously is still playing at a Super Bowl caliber level, even despite obviously his vertical passing game falling off a little bit. But Jameis Winston on just like a $1.5 million contract, it is so wild that he is in that position compared to – I mean, I know that the Pittsburgh Steelers are completely cap strapped, but they have tried – basically every single year in the draft to try to upgrade their backup quarterback position. And you go from Landry Jones to Josh Dobbs to Mason Rudolph to Duck Hodges. And it's like the same cycle over and over again of just disappointment when someone heading in there to fend for a injured Ben Roethlisberger where they didn't get a proven guy in that spot. So
the NFL dropped the ball on that. Because I was just talking about, so if you want a legit backup quarterback, you have to really spend clearly, you did not have to really spend to get Jameis. Why all 32 NFL teams were not willing to pay Jameis Winston $5.5 million to be their backup is insane, because that's cheaper than Teddy Bridgewater was. It's way cheaper than Marcus Mariota would have been. It would have been a small price to pay for like a quarterback insurance for like a truly contending team. And I don't understand why this one happened the way it did.
And isn't it funny, the one time the Steelers didn't go shopping for a backup was after the 1 year they saw their backups play and truly needed to add a backup?
It's insane.
I think the Browns are interesting a little bit. I mean, Case Keenum's their backup quarterback there behind Baker Mayfield, but based on what Baker put on the field, I barely even wanted to suggest them. And just going through these quarterback depth charts, can I ask you all a question? What roster is Paxton Lynch currently on? Pat? Bagel?
I'm going to say the Jets.
Pat?
Winnipeg Blue Bombers.
It's the team we were just discussing, the Pittsburgh Steelers. So maybe that's their backup scenario.
Oh, interesting. No, it's not.
My God.
All right, we are through 3 position groups on offense. John Daigle, you are back up with tight ends.
So if you are trying to match the Bucs 1-2 punch, which may be the answer here, right? Rob Gronkowski, O.J. Howard. You have to get really top heavy. We don't have to speak for depth. And so we're going with the Philadelphia Eagles because we can bring on Dallas Goedert and Zach Ertz. Imagine changing your entire offense to cater to a second-year player, let alone tight end. And that's what the Eagles did. They ran a league-high rate of 2 tight end sets last year, thus forcing Dallas Goedert into the field for 600 yards and 5 touchdowns in only his second year in the league. And, of course, Zach Ertz, the mainstay among that offense, 74 catches, 800 yards for 5 consecutive seasons. That's as top-heavy as it gets in the entire league. And if you want to go even deeper, we don't have to. But remember, Josh Perkins also came off the bench last year in that Week 17 win-and-in situation and did catch four receptions, 50 yards, and a touchdown. So a deep but also 1-2 punch that I don't think anyone in the league can match.
For some reason, I was expecting you to say the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, so I'm glad you went with who I thought would be number 1 with the Eagles here. I think Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert are both, if given the opportunity that other top tight ends are, obviously Ertz is, they would both be considered top 10 tight ends across the NFL. I mean, Dallas Goedert, I think, can be a special player. And for already contributing what he has in his first 2 seasons in the NFL at a position that we know is historically slow to develop, Dallas Goedert is on the trajectory, to me, to be an even better player throughout his career than what Zach Ertz has shown right now.
Yeah, I mean, the Eagles are the clear. I mean, Dallas Goedert would already be like a top 5 or 6 fantasy tight end if you're on almost any other team. And the Bucs are in the conversation now. Maybe the Rams, if you have 2 playmakers at tight end, that is the thing that most teams do not have. And the Eagles have it. I would say the Rams have it, and Tyler Higbee and Gerald Everett. Even the Ravens, after trading Hayden Hurst, Nick Boyle is still pretty – for a number 2 pass-catching threat at tight end, Nick Boyle is not a bad option. And the Eagles are heads and shoulders above – maybe not heads and shoulders above the Rams, but still clearly ahead of the Rams here. And it's the Eagles and really kind of end the discussion.
If you want to go 3 deep, it's the Bucs because Cameron Brate is a starter in this league who is just kind of forced out due to O.J. Howard's athleticism. But 2 deep, considering it's 31-year-old Gronkowski coming off a year where he wasn't even in the league, that
we don't know what to expect.
Goddard, exactly. No. That puts Goddard and Ertz at the forefront.
The Browns,
we left out. I mean, how can we leave out the team that's used 10 roster spots on tight ends?
And so at the bottom of this list, the Browns have signed Austin Hooper to a massive contract. They still have David Njoku, who maybe has his best football ahead of him. That's one for the potential, again, that we can look at a year from now and say, yeah, both have sprouted into very good players and have been better than they were in their past. Let me also throw this wrinkle in there. What if we include Kyle Juszczyk as a tight end? Which I don't know if is fair.
It's
but
not.
Then you have George Kittle and Kyle Juszczyk in this tight end / fullback hybrid. And then the San Francisco 49ers. Because I think, obviously, George Kittle is the best tight end in football. I mean, Travis Kelce is fantastic, but I would still start with George Kittle if I could. And that dynamic, I think, adds a little wrinkle onto this.
Ross Dwelly's not bad either. A team we should have maybe mentioned too is also the Vikings, with kind of an underappreciated jack of all trades in Kyle Rudolph, and then a really great upside young player in Irv Smith. Again, I'm trying to get his attributes up on Madden. Trying to get the progression going.
I think the Seahawks. You're gonna laugh. I think the Seahawks are kind of sneaky strong at that position as well.
They are.
Just to add Josh's face, just to have Greg Olsen, who I understand has been injured, but he's still a snap sponge. And Will Dissly has been a proven talent at that position despite running a 6'7" 40. Like, they actually manufacture his touches. So I think the Seahawks are pretty good too.
Yeah, I mean, you have Greg Olsen, who's missed a number of games in his last 2 seasons and is like a dad runner at this point. You have Will Dissly, who's always been a dad runner but somehow scores touchdowns.
He's successful. And
then you have Brian Schottenheimer's favorite football player in the whole NFL and Jacob Hollister. So, yeah. Maybe Seattle does belong there. All right, Daigle is your final answer, and I think it's the correct one, the Philadelphia Eagles.
Correct.
Okay. Pat, you're up with offensive coordinator.
I mean, we're all kind of cheating, I feel like, and I'm definitely going to try to cheat with this one.
Let me start with this. I don't necessarily just mean offensive coordinator. I think that play caller is the right way to say this because a lot of head coaches are play callers in the NFL.
Well, it's a good thing that you laid that caveat out there because I am going with head coach Andy Reid, and you could make an argument for head coach Kyle Shanahan, a lot of other people. I mean, just for Andy Reid, just first off, look at the different quarterbacks Andy Reid has run successful offenses with in his career, the diversity of skill sets. Donovan McNabb, Michael Vick, Alex Smith, Patrick Mahomes, 4 basically completely different skill sets. He even won some games with Jeff Garcia. And, the first quarter is as important as the fourth quarter, and no one comes out with a better initial game script usually than Andy Reid. And, and just in a league of followers, Andy Reid has, always been a trendsetter. You're never going to find, Andy Reid adjusting his offense to catch up to some innovation another team did. Andy Reid is one of the trendsetters. And, in his 60s, he's still at absolute peak of his powers. And just Andy Reid is the preeminent play caller in the NFL. And to keep going real quick, if I had to choose an actual play caller right now, I might go with someone who hasn't even called to play for his new team yet. But if a true offensive coordinator, I might say Gary Kubiak. We're talking about a perfect alignment between the head coach's philosophy and Kubiak's strengths and his quarterback's strengths. You're going to pound the rock and have play action passing. And so Gary Kubiak, maybe I would say, is the best pure offensive coordinator. But yeah, if I'm taking a play caller, I'm taking Andy Reid.
I'm still taking Kyle Shanahan. Still going top heavy, but you make a valid argument for Andy Reid, who has done it more consistently and much longer than Shanahan over different tenures.
If I can play devil's advocate here, Pat, between the Andy Reid, Kyle Shanahan debate, what's easier, to bring an offense to the Super Bowl that is quarterbacked by Patrick Mahomes or to bring an offense to the Super Bowl that is quarterbacked by Jimmy Garoppolo?
I mean, it's easier with Mahomes, but again, Andy Reid, he went 11-5 5 times with Alex Smith. So It's not exactly like he's always stacking the deck in his favor. And, it's easier to do with Pat Mahomes than it is Jimmy Garoppolo. But, Andy Reid took 3 years to turn Patrick Mahomes from a Texas Tech kind of uncertainty into the unquestioned best player in the NFL. Obviously, Mahomes deserves most of the credit for that. But it's not like Andy Reid has just been gifted, easy quarterback setups. And, it's pretty Kyle Shanahan made Matt Ryan an MVP and Jimmy Garoppolo a Super Bowl quarterback. It's pretty darn good.
And 4 consecutive NFC championship appearances from 2001 to 2004 for Andy Reid's Eagles. He was just due the Super Bowl. Just give him that.
I was heartsick for Andy Reid that he had never won a Super Bowl, and so happy he finally got it.
So what if Kyle Shanahan's in that same place in 15 years and
he
still
is
hasn't
setting
won?
Himself up to be the next Andy Reid, is he not?
I think both are obviously fantastic. What Kyle is able to do to, you watch teams across the league every single week, and it's like their passing game can look so difficult. I'm looking to you, Bill O'Brien, and Deshaun Watson. The first and primary read is never there. Meanwhile, you turn on a 49ers game, and immediately, everything is open by 2 or 3 yards in the middle of the field. You're like, why can't any other team do this easily? What Kyle Shanahan is able to do to create separation for his players, who obviously are then fantastic with the ball in their hands afterwards. There's a lot of cohesion. There's a lot of synergy there. And I just love what he's building in San Francisco, despite, I think, obviously a drop down in talent at quarterback compared to others. I want to nominate one more, though. I'm a little shocked that he hasn't been mentioned.
I know who it is.
Greg Roman of the Baltimore Ravens. Greg Roman has taken a quarterback that everyone in the league passed up on once. Everyone in the league passed up on once that they don't want to run the style of offense. They didn't want to have a quarterback who is their number one rushing threat, as well as building a passing offense around him. No one wanted to think out of the box in that style. Yet Greg Roman put out one of the best offenses in the NFL in 2019 and returns basically every single starter for the upcoming season. I think Greg Roman's in a fantastic spot.
He is. And this isn't the first time Greg Roman's done that either. Greg Roman with the 49ers kind of took an unorthodox situation and made an elite offense. And I thought the guy you were going to mention, though, that we hadn't mentioned yet, was Sean Payton. But we've all just mentally docked because, this Taysom Hill contract, we need an entire podcast just on the Taysom Hill contract.
No, we don't. We do not. I refuse. I will sit out that episode.
And I think Greg Roman could get by with RG3 for a couple games, a la Matt Moore and Andy Reid, if he needed to.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Greg Roman just deserves a lot of love. Again, I think innovation's a great word for it, Pat, where we see so many teams across the league look at Andy Reid, look at Kyle Shanahan, and say, oh, now I want to do what they did. I mean, the same was with Sean McVay a couple of years ago. Meanwhile, there are trailblazers out there. And while, Greg Roman certainly is borrowing from the past of what things have worked with other teams, he is now, if you look across the league of 32 teams, he is the only one doing his style, really. And that speaks volumes to me of the risk, of the want to, of the will to do that, because so many people in the league are copycats.
And it's with Greg Roman too, you're almost underselling it because he initially did this in the middle of a season. He wasn't even the offensive coordinator in 2018, and they just kind of made him the coordinator on the fly, and he changed the whole offense on the fly from Joe Flacco. So, yeah, he was a great underrated name to bring up.
But you are finishing with Andy Reid here as the best play caller in the NFL, Pat.
I am Sir Andrew Reid, spelled
Super Bowl
R-I-E.
winner, Andy Reid.
Yeah.
All right. We will close out this discussion with offensive line. And you all hear me talk about it every single week. I always talk about offensive line talent and continuity. And there are 6 teams entering next season that, as of right now, have the same 5 starters in place as they did last year. Those are the Bills, the Chiefs, the Colts, the Jaguars, the Raiders, and the Saints. And of those 6, only one of the teams spent a top 2-round pick on offensive linemen. That was obviously the Saints in the first round with Cesar Ruiz. So it might not be fair, but I am going to keep my decision to one of those 6 teams. I understand, when new offensive linemen come in that they can gel, maybe they upgraded. Other people on that list, 26 other teams might be better than those 6, but I can basically just go on what we've seen in the past. And again, talent and continuity to me trump all. I can also eliminate 3 teams because based on a talent level, they do not match up with the other 3. I'll eliminate the Bills, eliminate the Chiefs, and the Jaguars. So guys, that leaves me with the Las Vegas Raiders, the Indianapolis Colts, and the New Orleans Saints. I'll get to the end here, and I'll pick the New Orleans Saints. This is a team that has created a lot of yards for their running backs in the passing game, but we're also number 4 overall in pass pro efficiency per PFF last year. And a healthy 5 group of Teron Armstead, who is one of the best left tackle athletes we've seen in the NFL, Andrews Pete, who they just re-signed, Eric McCoy at center, who is on a rookie contract, Larry Warford, who is a veteran and has done it for a very long time, / Cesar Ruiz in that right guard spot. And the Saints were one of the first teams to really value right tackle as much as left tackle in Ryan Ramczyk. I think the Saints have absolutely created one of the best, if not the best, offensive line situation in the NFL.
Hard to argue. We're both just too stunned. But I'm also famously known for my strong opinions on offensive line units.
Well, you've been hitting the lab lately, Pat.
I became a film guru during the run-up to the draft. I'll say, so the Colts, I knew would be one of the teams in there. And this is not really going on. I'm excited to see what this elite, unquestionably elite Colts offensive line can do with Phillip Rivers. Because when was the last time Phillip Rivers had an actually good offensive line? And you have this marriage of a quarterback who gets the ball out as quick as any quarterback in the NFL with this elite offensive line. And we could see a real bounce back season from Phillip Rivers. But the Saints, man, just everything. I loved your Saints poetry there. Just the way and the depth and the way Kyle Shanahan kind of gets all the recent plaudits for run game design, but Sean Payton, man, he's so good at that too. And but yeah, it's hard to argue with any of your choices at offensive line.
And what about the Colts not just protecting for Phillip Rivers, but opening holes for Jonathan Taylor? We'll see how their workload split with Marlon Mack, but to have an early down grinder like Mack and then replace him with someone who we project can do that even better behind one of the best offensive lines in the league. Yeah. It's going to be something special on that offense.
Yeah. More research to back that up. The Raiders created 73%. Well, let me say this. 73% of Josh Jacobs' yards last year came after contact. 70% of Alvin Kamara / Latavius Murray's yards came after contact last year, 64% for Marlon Mack. So of that trio, the Colts offensive line created the most yards for their back. I was shocked, though, to find out that per PFF, their pass pro efficiency was 24th in the NFL. But we always go back to this, pressures and sacks, so on and so forth, are almost equally a quarterback stat as they are an offensive line stat. And Jacoby Brissett is someone who had some trouble with that last season to draw in and reel in even more pressure. But I think Chris Ballard deserves a lot of credit for, the Saints have been able to basically use high draft capital at every single one of their offensive line spots or big second contracts. Chris Ballard wasn't able to do that. Mark Lewinsky was a cast-off by one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL in the Seattle Seahawks, and boom, he comes in, and that group, the Colts, have turned him into one of the better guards in the entire NFL.
And Anthony Costanzo flirted with leaving, but he's back, making this unit just as strong for at least one more year.
And that was a great point you made about Jacoby Brissett holding on to the ball for too long, because now the Colts go from that to, again, one of the quickest in the league and getting out and Phillip Rivers. So you'll see a bounce back for the Colts pass pro. And just, man, I am so excited with the Jonathan Taylor Colts thing, because to me, Jonathan Taylor is not very impressive side to side. But if you're clearing him lanes moving forward and he can hit that and explode, I mean, we're going to see a lot of long touchdowns behind that Colts offensive line.
Yeah, he's a slalom skier between the tackles. Like, he will weave and switch gaps and switch everything and really can make it happen between the tackles. And he has a lot better athleticism than I think a lot of people expected. So the big play is going to be there as well. One final point here. I think we're all in unison in saying the Saints, but they also have some depth. I mean, either right now it's Cesar Ruiz as a backup. Nick Eason, who they brought in last offseason, has plenty of starting experience previously with the Minnesota Vikings. And then I believe Will Clapp is their swing offensive lineman, utility offensive lineman right now. So, yes, we are closing here with the New Orleans Saints as the best offensive line in the NFL. Should I run through all of our picks, gentlemen?
Yes, our starting unit. Yes.
Yes. This is a perfect scenario, one that would even beat Pat in Madden if we had the chance. The best running back situation in the NFL goes to the Cleveland Browns, kind of out of nowhere. The best play caller, Andy Reid and the Kansas City Chiefs. The best wide receiver situation, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, even Scotty Miller. Tight end, the Philadelphia Eagles with the duo of Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert. The best quarterback situation goes to one man and one man by himself. That is Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. And then it is all protected by the offensive line of the New Orleans Saints and their front five, plus depth players. How did we do, gentlemen? Not bad? Fun exercise?
What if we gave Andy Reid the Ravens running backs instead of the Browns running backs? Then you think about it.
I don't know. He kind of seems smitten with Clyde Edwards-Helaire at the moment. And that could be a player who we talk about in a year from now as, yeah, that should have been in our conversation. If he truly is Brian Westbrook coming out of Andy Reid's mouth to our ears. Pat?
I think we won.
How do we do?
This team's winning multiple Super Bowls. And
like Kirk Cousins and
the next
dynasty.
4 or 5. Yeah, I mean, they're not going to compare with my terrible Madden playing. But I'm the world's worst Madden player, but I just refuse to get better. I just keep throwing no matter what. And
what is the repeated issue? Let it vent to us, and we will try to help you, even though I haven't played Madden in about 5 years.
Interceptions. And it's kind of a refusal to read coverages and just I'm just trying to have fun. I'm going to my first read every single time. And usually that first read is wide open for 20 yards, but 1 out of every 5 or 6 times they're not, and it's automatically intercepted. And
you did go to Missouri. And, we've seen other Missouri quarterbacks do the exact same thing once entering the NFL. So, Pat, this is not a shocking development.
Yes.
So,
we're
the Blaine Gabbert of Madden players at the moment.
Well, no. I would say I take Drew Lock Liberty, my first deep field read, over Blaine Gabbert Death, and, not kind of going for the home run. So
also not a shocking development. Whenever we're lamenting on Pat's Madden franchise, that's when John Daigle kicks us off the air. So let's get out of here.
Yes, let's get out of here. We'll be back next Tuesday/Wednesday with another episode of this very podcast. Thank you all for checking this one out, listening to us along the way and during draft season. So for Daigle, for Pat, I am Josh. Up the Villa. We'll talk to you soon. See you.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.